Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, and lovers of literature, welcome to this evening's special event. Tonight, we have the privilege of hearing from a truly unique voice in the world of science fiction poetry. Please join me in welcoming Cannonball Krypto, the creative force behind The Box Cutter, a space odyssey in verse. In an era where space exploration often serves as the backdrop for high-tech escapades and dystopian dramas, Cannonball Krypto brings us a refreshing and thought-provoking addition to the genre. Presented in the form of an epic poem, The Box Cutter deftly intertwines human emotion with cosmic adventure. This epic poem picks up the interstellar journey of the captain and his crew as they navigate the moral and existential dilemmas of deep space travel. Through rich, rhythmic verses, Cannonball Krypto paints a vivid picture of a future where humanity grapples with the consequences of its past actions. Themes of redemption, the burden of history, and the struggle for survival resonate throughout the text. The poetic form of The Box Cutter is both its most striking feature and its greatest strength. The command of language is evident in the carefully crafted stanzas that flow seamlessly from one to the next. The rhythm and cadence not only enhance the storytelling but also serve to underscore the emotional beats of the narrative. The use of archaic and contemporary language blends seamlessly, creating a timeless quality that transcends the sci-fi genre. The characters are brought to life with sensitivity and nuance. Captain stands out as a deeply relatable protagonist, his vulnerability and resilience portrayed with depth and complexity. The supporting characters, including the pragmatic engineer Bingo and the philosophical Zathjo, bring their own perspectives and strengths to the story, providing a human touch to the grand scale of the narrative. One notable subplot involves a character's aspiration to be assigned to the Box Cutter, a ship left over after the destruction of its home dragon. This aspiration symbolizes hope and the longing for a new beginning in the far reaches of Alpha Centauri. The author's use of imagery is masterful, with space itself becoming a character in the story. The descriptions of the ship's interior, the vastness of the cosmos, and the remnants of human civilization are rendered in exquisite detail. Symbolism is woven throughout the text, from the stark corridors of the spaceship as metaphors for the loneliness and isolation of space travel, to the recurring motif of starlight representing hope and guidance in the darkness. A unique aspect of the story is the ritualistic voting system, a remnant of Earth's democratic traditions adapted for space. This system is pivotal in decision-making processes aboard the ship, emphasizing collective responsibility and the moral weight of leadership choices. The ritualistic nature of the voting adds a layer of depth to the narrative, highlighting the tension between individual desires and communal welfare. For those seeking a literary journey that challenges the mind and stirs the soul, The Box Cutter is an odyssey not to be missed. And now, without further ado, it is my great honor to introduce Cannonball Krypto, who will be performing a reading of The Box Cutter, a space odyssey in verse. Please give a warm welcome to Cannonball Krypto.
Farstarrocinante Rave, Act 4, The Box Cutter. 608 Comics, number 10. Pulled up to the station, praised tribute to the leader of the establishing nation, passed through customs, and prayed for the Rustums, and the steamers, and the collies. I trust them. Trust them, don't dust them. They're all that's left of most men and women, humans, all that's left up here then. Way out here, deep in space, dream has got to go back to save the human race. But what if it's just to help some evildoers save face? We got to pay a price for selfish men's pride, so old dudes don't get blamed for all those that died. It's too late, we've already done cried. Let the past die, lay this aside. Written by the captain, signed and dated October 3rd, 2221, found in an unsent, unaddressed letter years after the captain's death in 2330. The 9 Dragons. So this isn't part 2, you know, it's really part 4. So if you don't know the story, then show yourself the door. Just in case you forgot what just happened, I spit out a verse, half a page of recapping. The ancient Earth was destroyed by air pollution. Time traveled to save them, the fashionable solution. But in order to save Earth from mass extinction, They must choose between their world and the old world and make a distinction. Our heroes had gone from Earth to the moon, then way out to Ceres, where they arrived just past noon. They dropped off the soldier, then dropped down to Mars, said goodbye to Dr. Spark, who drove away in Dream's car. Left them at Fort Watney, but Spark first dropped the plot key. The update for this part, see? Trip to Alpha Centauri. Safe past the time waves of changed centuries. So Captain and Nav and Eng and the pilot went on a long haul trip just to try it. They stop out at Jupiter's moons to refit, then out of the gate, a speed run, flooring it. They accomplished in weeks what used to take years, and when I find my paper outline, I'll take it up from here. Farstarrocinante Rave, Act 4. Pitar Castra Overture, 2221, on the way to Alpha Centauri. Old Horse Shanty. Prologue. Captain wondering about old relatives back at Seoul, some alive and some gone. The captain. Looking out the window at the stars, drinking endless cups of tea from jars. Excited to land and try some rover cars. Haven't been outside since that afternoon back on Mars. But soon we'll be there, and out at stars I do stare as I sit in my chair, but I'm left so aware of the people I left, some gone for good, some just a while, some gone since back in the day in our hood. I was born on D7, much higher than heaven, highest ship above Gaia, as long as you don't try to count the 2 dragons parked above Nili Fasai. Out past the moon I grew up too soon. Days were still tough, and life there was rough, but I learned enough, and I had the right stuff to blast rockets, puff, and I was up to snuff. Came of age down on Earth, trash fires and no worth, spent all hours in dome, installing wires and chrome. Got through with the training, Rustums teach through explanations and braining. My knowledge was gaining, my wrench oil staining. But now I'm out flying, and I'm not really crying. Just some dust in my eye, maybe I'm tired from trying. 2 light years down, 2 light years to go. This velocity is way past the science I know. But old science laws always melt like the snow, as knowledge progresses and our synapses grow. Grow more mysterious, grow more delirious, grow through the root of us, wisdom bears fruit for us. The captain sat in the dark and drank tea, sitting in his chair, looking out of the window of his stateroom at the endless stars of space. Act 4, Scene 1, Dragon 5, at the second Lagrange point. This is from the captain's great-grandkids' report on historical figures from October 13th, 2345. They called it the courthouse, technically a court level. 'Twas so well designed, aesthetic curves ornate beveled. Illusion of fairness, for gods or for deviled. 180-degree views of stars with wood-covered metal. The windows were giant, the balconies high, flying buttresses, antique tables, bookcases towards the sky. The judge came in, the state claimed the sin. 40 of us were dismissed, 12 of them stayed in. I saw my friend as we were led out. I said, I'm still glad I got to see what that was all about. The general is accused of tampering with time. She had ordered Dream's first trip in an earlier rhyme. The Space Force at D4 and the Nihilist on Dragon 6 wanted us to go back to the past and the Earth's atmosphere fix. They claimed all of us would be reborn, but fate's paths are tricky and destinies could be torn. 4 of 9 dragons knew we wanted to live more, even if we believed in an afterlife's door. Door of fate to change time's state, to bring back trash-burning earthers who hate. They hated each other and hated the trees. They hated the whales. They hated the bees. Maybe 90,000 of us ain't a lot, but maybe we got something the anciently earthers did not. I can't abide to see us all die, to bring back a past that we should have just let rot. But 2 of the dragons held most of the guns, and 2 of the others didn't understand puns, or quadratronic gravitics, or quotients and sums. 4-4 vote with 1 sitting out, but now this court case would decide with no doubt. Decide on a plan to change the whole land. At the general's arraignment, a note for the plaintiff. President of D9s has missiles in the basement. They're pointed at you, so what you gonna do? Rescind your case and we'll see the skies blue. Urban myth. Face it, not guilty. The general walked out. She knew she'd gathered all the reins, all the clout. She quietly took her new power and walked through, went back to her shuttle. She knew what she would do. So she blew up D7 before we could block. Lost home again, history repeat clock. Only expatriates at sea will us ever be. Cast through the heavens, 50 lost kids of D7. Bingo says, oh, do you remember Bingo, the engineer of the Farstarrocinante? It's on its way to Rigel K, Alpha Centauri. Okay, take it up. Bingo takes it up here. Halfway out to AC, we watched on TV. The captain broke totally with what we had to see. He used to be one of a 10K family, now just 46 others and he. Pragmatic as ever and tough soldier at core, the captain got composed and came back in the door. He put on some tea and went to his seat and said no more about it until it was time to eat. We sat in the galley and wondered what was next. The captain stood up and read words of an ancient text. He talked about seasons and said turn, 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 and said he would resign his post after this burn. He said he had honor and would finish his mission, but then retire early and get a job doing fission. Instead of going back to cut out the general's heart, our very wise captain offered all dragons a new start. If the experiment could be delayed, and if the general's orders could be temporarily belayed, we could move all the dragons away, still save old Earth soon, but also save our culture today. The brains checked his maths, and we high-fived and laughed. Things came to pass. We all headed west. Maybe Alpha Proxima would be best. 4 dragons left, booked it to get out of Soul's shadow, so they wouldn't be engulfed in the reality change blast to fix the past. Bingo says. But everything changed for me one night. I stupidly joked maybe the general was right. The captain knocked me out with 1 punch in the face. He blasted me out of the airlock and out into space. Before I could catch up with all of my bearings, I turned around and saw the crew at the window staring. The captain radioed, "Sorry, Bingo, I guess I overreacted. We'll get the tow cables and have you redact it." But just before they got around to the burn to turn them around, the radar was beeping with an alarm sound. A Sol 1 engine tanker was following our path. The captain said, "Next time don't talk," with a laugh. "Peace, Bingo, sorry." My ship zipped away. I wondered what my friends were going to say. I sent, "Have a safe trip, don't let the domes rip. If you make homemade cookies, make mine chocolate chip. I'll come for a nip of your AC homebrew sip. If there are lakes at AC, we'll go for a dip." The tanker ship picked me up and gave me a room. A much slower trip. I did maths and sensed doom. I guessed I went from the fastest ship in the fleet to working with steamers and trudging my feet. The captain et al. Will be there by fall, but the ship that I'm on that picked me up from my distress call, even at full burn, coals to the wall, fast as you saw, won't be there until 16 months later than y'all. 2 weeks later. Been here for a bit and I'm having fun. Today we stopped at an Oort Cloud oil run. Believe it or not, the ion beam ship is run by gas-powered jennies we have to equip. So actually burning petro fuel to ourselves keep rolling. The miles keep tolling. Energy beams we're hauling. The fleet won't be stalling. I worked all across the ship, athwart ships and back. Marvel of humanos, technology bin tips to stack. I got assigned roommates and a cool job to do. On our off hours, we'd go see the mice and the rats in the zoo. In some ways, it was nicer to be with a big crowd, but going from 3 roommates to 7,000 sometimes gets loud. But I got a small drum made from an oil can, and when I need to chill out, I play music spells if I can. Later. By now, my old ship is almost 3 light years there, and I'm barely out past solar wind air. At least we got Voyager in the rear view, and the double star system is exciting and new. Sometimes it's hard to write epic poems. I get the ideas all mixed up and confused in my dome, and I usually dig deep and find words that rhyme. The hardest part of sci-fi is math that fills my time. Because I want to write Voyager's 22 light out, but before I poemed it, I had a moment of a doubt. I thought I could copy digits from JPL site easy and fast, but then I realized my data is 200 years in the story's past. Now, I don't know how to get back on track. I don't worry about nothing, and I ain't got no tact, but maybe I better go take a run around the track, or do some qigong and stretch out my back. Better take a break. I'll drop into the story after we get past the Oort cloud. So they headed out to space for to change their whole place. Earth's death would be eclipsed and the gravity well ellipse. The lips would whisper, if we ride real fast, we can get far, far out, safe away from the blast. The changes that would fix the trash burners time past, blast's wave would hit the Oort cloud but not go past.
Bingo says.
The Rustum changed the gears and made the visor panels clear, and often dangers led to tears, and they acted with no fear, and wished we had water for beer, but soon will be AC near, and I'll make it real clear. Although I've been on the wagon 15 years, when we get down to dry land, I'm drinking 10 beers. 1 for the years living out of the trash burner's fears, 9 for tribute to the box cutter's gears. The mythical chariot again appears, and I don't listen to naysayers' jeers, but I've got to go vote as the end of days nears. So the dead zone, it's weird. I think its name comes from some book. I'll have to go to my library bookshelf and look. But some parts of our ship are so freaking old. It predates AI and robots, I'm told. It says 551, and it's not too much fun to be solving old riddles from 2001. Because when you ask about the century, it says it was made in 86. But Rotonomat says 68. Isn't it great that the entire history of our species is left to fate? If some old scholar trying to make one last dollar failed to translate, because ancient 8 meant 8th, but 8 meant August, figured it out too late. So let's break this down. I ain't no clown. I'm a simple scientist. Now I know what's next, a little bit, and I'm glad I made a list. So exposition, hexposition, superstition, juxtaposition. Here's Xantho's paradox. Unlock, locks, and listen. Okay, so here's Xantho. Is this the same ship our great-grandparents bought? It was once called 551, and it isn't much fun if you're caught. It was new 200 years ago, and Rustums have long since replaced every part. New 100 years to go? Let's go down to the core and find the spaceship's old heart. And then Bingo takes up the perspective again. So we all went down after a good Dr. Brown, past the halls, through the kitchen, past the old curry cart, down 5 stairs, and through a warehouse filled with old chairs. And the shadows don't dare to mess with us carefully and fully prepared. We even had extra air, and 36 pair of automatic emergency gliders. So we got to the end of a particularly long hall, and soon saw several panels up there on the wall. I reached out to touch it, but Brown said, "Don't do that." I pulled back my hand she had slapped with the map. She turned the map over, and Sheen read the code. Then he started to sing the most melodious ode. The images flooded our mind with great peace. We imagined Rigel sunsets just like souls in the east, working the space oil rig Ion Jenny for most another year at least. When we end our journey, we'll party, rest, and feast. Xantho continued. Even if concepts are only conventions like East, they still can be useful to ferment new ideas, active yeast. CO2 bubbles that caused our old Earth much great trouble will be less than double, rip TBs right back out of the rubble. Sheen says, well, I'm not sure I understand the whole score. I feel like I'm reading a story that starts on page 4. I'd never believe it would come to war, but as you can see, my prognostication is poor. I often predict incorrectly what would be behind the next door. Xantho retorts, well, there's a paradox about the 3 doors. It turns out somehow your odds go up a bit more. If after one choice is revealed, you change your first choice, your odds go up to hear, you've won, from the TV host's voice. Brown interjects, quiet, I'm trying to read this map. Brown turns to Bingo. What's your name? Bingo says, they used to call me Bingo. Xantho says, that's stupid. What's your real name? Bingo says, Root. Brown says, that's a really cool name. Now be quiet, whatever your name is. Bingo/Root says, now I had been quiet for a page and a half, and as I thought it all out, I started to laugh, just in my head, because I heard what Brown said, and I saw what I saw when the door went from green to red. New true belief in the old map ran through my head. We next went forward through several, 4 levels of hangars, any type of ship you ever heard of, even old clangers. This is where and when I first walked past the ship that would someday be mine, when we got to ACA in a few more months' time. Rigel Kentaurus is yellow like our sun, our old sun, we'd say, but I'm glad that I'm one of the old people who will remember, or even will care, what it was like to have our first sun, Sol, up in space hanging there. Well, when we went to the center of the oldest part of the ship, I'm sure thought that I had had the most amazing trip. I guess they had all been around 551 before. They make them map each part in school in grade 4. But I don't think I'd ever been through so many doors, or realized how much stuff there was in our stores. Some of the chambers were as big as a cave. We'd see different people and robots and wave. We saw workshops and farms and engines and naves. We even cut through a nightclub hosting a robot rave. Down and to the left our journey kept going. Older and older parts of the spaceship were showing. The ship was made in some old Baroque industrial style. As we got to the center of the corridor, the length, half a mile. When we went through some real old stuff, ancient airlocks, the inside was small but sturdy, no knocks. We saw something crazy attached to the floor. It was so out of place, but it was surely the core. It was an old Jenny, grown slate gray with age. I pulled up the specs and copyright page. The Jenny was wired to an energy column, like ancient Egyptian magic batteries of Solomon. Maybe a soul portal or something like that. The energy glowed and lit the room from where it sat. Contained by robotics, stills and tanks for the fuel, dehumidifiers for the H2O to keep the thing cool. The Jenny seemed to somehow control our whole freighter. The connections were so old, so many, and added to later. Xantho took up Root's sentence. And added to again and again and again. You know this whole ship got rebuilt again in 110? Xantho is referring to the 2110 rebuild. It seems like each time they've upgraded our ship, they came and spliced wires to give this heap a splice rip, and pushed a bit more gravity resistance to tip, and bounced this whole level upside down on the lip. Sheen says, edge of time, edge of space, energy runs through this place, edge of day, edge of life, sometimes joy, sometimes strife. Root says, so I reached out with the towel I got from the galley above, and started humming the tune of Tupac's California Love. I wiped the oil and the rust and the age off the faceplate of the Jenny built into the lab stage. I couldn't read most of the letters I saw, but I recognized 551, but it was writ upside down. I wiped off more grit and dirt from the nameplate and stumbled back in a stunned and shocked state. I guess we had our history all backwards. Our ship wasn't 551, as we had said for generations. Some scholar read it upside down, reversed abbreviation. The abbreviation for the multiple nation space station. Well, now we know now that it is the same ship as before. The part we were in started getting built in 1994. Mysteries answered, and we got to hike back 1,000 floors. Reverse our course, home through the hallways, rooms, and doors. Act 4, Scene 2. the voting ritual. Now here's a continuation of the Captain Great-Grandkids report on the historical figure from October 13th, 2345. So everyone went back to their own small compartment. Most of the place seemed like a dorm or a complex apartment. They shaved and showered and met at the gate. The next tram car would be there at 7:45. Sheen says, "What the heck's 8 mean in a night without day? I can't wait to see the sun rises when we get to Rigel K. I need some real light. I can't survive my life this way. At least our dead horse is gone, and I'm getting real pay." Brown started singing, "We'll push that horse through the airlock real swift, and we say so, and we hope so. Say goodbye and give the rockets a kick. Oh, poor old soul." Xantho interjects, "Well, actually, according to most ethnomusicologist studies, the original Trash Burner folk song said, 'Poor old man.' After the trades of 58, you know, the 2158 music file trades to back up territorial rights clarification between dragons, well, the versions used in one of D5's propaganda films was created as the crew stayed up late, as they needed the soundtrack file, but they also sounded great, so they sang it with different word to subvert the copyright conversion, and put it out as a background song on a war promo diversion." Xantho said to Root, "You don't talk much, do you?" Root said, "My captain, my brother, my roommate, my friend, threw me out an airlock module, not for pretend. If he hadn't picked me up and formed my life tent, I would have starved for air or froze or died and surely met my end. So don't get me started or the story never ends. I'm so happy to be here with you on 551, my new friends. Now I've done seen it all, even time travel bends, and I got to just live my life and enjoy all the joy it sends. I was on a path that diverged in the woods. I would have gone mad, you surely would. No one ever took a road less taken than the nightmare of sub-ort cloud stranded awaken. With the time wave coming." Then like Root totally freezes and like affect changes in voice, stops, gets totally different. "I've seen what the time wave will do. It nearly killed my friend." Brown asks, "Who is your friend?" Root says, "He was actually a robot." Sheen says, "Does the time wave disproportionately affect robots?" Xantho said, "Your boyfriend was a robot?" Root said, "He was just my friend, and I didn't know he was a robot anyway." Sheen says, "Yeah, why would anyone expect their friend, a real person, to be a robot?" Brown says, "Watch out, here comes our tram car. We'll head to go vote, and then head to the bar." Root says, "I don't think I'll ever get used to this here system. Never thought I'd look back on our decade-based votes, back on D7 and miss them. But when most of the dragons head in to have dinner, you all gather every night to vote and pick a winner." Here's a continuation of the Captain's Great-Grandkids report on historical figure from October 13th, 2345. Their tram car pulled up and they all took their seats. Bingo was still dreaming of something to eat. They joined 60 tram cars down at the station. Their section of 551 reported to the nation. Each of 6 sections reported to the collies. The collies would read out the winners and news, the timestamp and distance as they sat in their pews. Where I'm from, they're called benches or chairs, but there the votes and ritual led folks to put on airs. Bingo got ready to show some ID. It seemed dumb the same guard as yesterday would see. Through the chamber 2 priests sat at a table, when across the room a high priestess sat neath the gables, and most magic of all there stood a guy with a box, where we'd ritualistically fill it up with green rocks. Well, green rocks if we wanted the vote to go ahead, but red rocks if we wanted to be ostracized instead. With 4 of the illustrious section fathers breathing over our shoulder, we cast in our green rocks, chipped out of a boulder. If we went out in space, you know we'd be colder. So read more sci-fi poems. Well, that is what I told her. Bingo, Root continues. We were in a line with the other 2,360 voters of our section. Well, actually we had 2,359 since Old Man Higgs was no longer alive. But pretty soon we'd have 2,377. 2 voters born for each one in heaven. Here's a continuation of the Captain's Great-Grandkids report on the historical figure from October 13th, 2345. So they voted and exited and went to the bar. They each had 3 drink tickets, then back to the tram car. It took them back home after a night on the town. Bingo got rationed dried apple oatmeal and sat down. Root says, Root/Bingo, I don't know how they can live life on this ship. It's so slow and barely moves at half a clip. Sheen says, half a clip center and half a clip aft. Half a clip to the left on my 3-parsec raft. Raft skiing gets you out for a different perspective, gets you some scale and some knowledge objectives. So in 56 days you know we get the next day off. We'll take the raft out and skim D2's wake and play golf. Bingo, Root says, I can't believe D7 is gone. And for the other jerk dragons, their time won't be long. The time wave is set and sure like a storm. The new timeline will crystallize, it's ready to form. Thank freedom we're safe with Ds 2, 3, and 8. And especially D3, I think collies are great. And all the leftover little D dragons of D7. The Farstarrocinante, the Box Cutter, Old Green Star Heaven, Polaris 1, New Dawn, The Rainy Day, Box 14, Star Fox, Sundog, Luna 1 through 18. Luna 19 was lost on a sad, sad day. An undetected meteor had gone in its way, and it took D7 survivors down to 43 that day. Root turns to Sheen. So you guys just don't eat? What's up with that? Sheen says, you just had your oatmeal. You should be glad about that. Root says, 1 oatmeal at night, 1 oatmeal at wake up. Don't you at least have Auto Dog on the starboard beam? Life without ice cream is like a bad dream. Sheen says, we ain't on a farm. This sure ain't Kansas, Dorothy. We ain't got no wakey eggs and bakey out here. Root says, on D7 Sheen interrupted. D7 was a giant modern civilization of 10,000 people. You had entire levels dedicated to food production that were bigger than our whole ship. Don't diss our oatmeal. You could easily live on 1 serving a day. You must have noticed you haven't lost weight, and you've been here a while. The oatmeal was designed by Rotun Mats to give us all of our nutritional needs in 1 serving. It's a celebration to have 2 servings. Root says, but you have the energy and technology to build out more food production facilities. Sheen says, the old ways are the best ways. Root thinks about it for a second. Maybe. All of our feasts are gone now. Sheen says, we will feast again when we get to Rigel K5. So I never really finished explaining the dead zones. In fact, I think I forgot for a second I was even in a sci-fi epic poem. Technically, they say a poem doesn't have to rhyme. Maybe I'll go back and fix that last scene/verse at a later time. A stitch in time saves 9, and I've been slacking. Get my act together before death's push mower comes a-clacking. The next day. Xantho. So the dead zones are huge areas of 551 that are off-grid. Our parents left them off-grid on purpose, they did. So when singularities ignited and took over more and hooked up our permanent life support and stores, bots left us with leisure and study and just simple chores. We don't need to hoist sails or push on big oars. Grands left some parts of the ship unwired just in case. AI went mad and attacked us while we were in deep space. Dead zones aren't recognized as part of the ship by its brain. Some say they are quarantine-damaged bits that went insane. Some dead zones appear to be just more ship, but other ones' life support ends with a rip. And the habitable zones go up to the line like the lip of a cliff. So if you don't have a helmet, you'll get snuffed out with a whiff of the dead zone's stale air with ozone and pear. We'll seat you in chairs and leave you unaware that your bio watch stopped working 3 levels back, and you forgot your helmet and gloves in your backpack. And they say there are ghosts down there in the machine, and no one never came back to explain what it all means. Sheen says, well, if no one's come back from there, how can we believe or care? How can they say what happened in the dead zone if they didn't make it out to return safely home? Brown, though, says, no, Xantho is right. I've seen it myself. Going to the dead zones is fatal to your health. Sheen DMTNT, you forgot to consider. We have many cameras and sensors to deliver. High-quality images of whole teams torn to shreds. or hooked up with wires and microchips in their heads. Root says, "But you took us to the dead zone yesterday. We're lucky robots didn't grab us and take us away." Brown says, "We were lucky enough not to get caught. I think it was luck and the wisdom we sought." Sheen says, "But we made it back, that's what I'm saying. You guys write me off, but my fair share I'm paying." Brown says, "We would never write you off. I'm sorry you felt that. We hold you in the highest regard and tip our hat." Xantho says, "Well, another happy ending to one of our fun times. Maybe we'll refer back to it someday in our later rhymes. But the hour is late and it's midnight plus 9. I'll dream to sleep singing old songs like blackberry wine." Root says, "But can't you tell me more about spacewalk physics? I've done it my whole life, but there is something I'm missing. Maybe you can explain it. I'm good-looking and poetic. I'd like to know more. I'm wise and unapologetic." Brown says, "I can explain. Imagine you're on a train, but the train is a spaceship, a giant city with a brain, and there are some spots on the spaceship that the brain cannot reach, so it sends out orders through robotonomats to teach us to fix things that get out of whack. Dead zones the brain's itch that can't be reached on their back. Sometimes at first, rotonomats sent us in sideways. We'd go out on a skiff and ride in through the stars' rays, and come in a bit laterally and under the ship, and dock up under the fuselage and give it a little rip, and quickly seal the tear before letting out much air. And sometimes it's cool to be aware that you are no longer under rotonomats' glare, and you're breathing real leftover Earth air, cycled through 200 years unaware, and carried beyond the bounds of the sun, halfway out on our AC run." 13 months later. The calculations were tough with the triple star system. The simple sol system's old numbers, we missed them. Most paths were determined on Dragon 3, Tiangan. The gravity ripples like a sound healer's gong. Sound wash into gravity mosh. If we miss our encounter, we'll get slingshotted out forever. It could be a real downer. We started to get close when we passed the red star. Periapsis ahead, 2 yellows not far. After so long in deep space, the red dwarf seemed giant, and our interstellar gravitic engine was true and compliant. The sequence was humming, and there weren't too much bumming. Collies were drumming codes as the engines were thrumming. Through the eye of the needle between 2 yellows and red, dreams of horizons danced through my head. Like a chi arrow aiming for the eye of the golden eagle, we threaded through the 3 stars, thread through the needle. We got so freaking lucky to find a new planet, and a whole new world we are lucky to plan it. And if we encounter a big river, we'll easily span it. Want to hear our best rhymes? Check your email, we spam it. Drawing lots. Root says, "The singularity got involved and made us draw lots. For genetic diversity, they mixed us up a lot. The moon of New Neptune was divided by 3. We went through voting rituals backwards to see. They painted rocks this time with 4 different shades. They had us pick randomly between 3 different grades. Our new planet was divided into 6 big islands. We'd habitate 3 and go down and try them. I got lucky somehow. My 3 friends drew like me, and we were going down to the medium island to see if there could be a whole new world and a whole new life there for we, who had traveled across the whole seas of space-time to be. We started to fall into the new Neptune's gravity well, and my stomach dropped out, but I knew it would be swell to get down on dry land and finally stop burning. No human before had so far dwelled, or for rest felt such yearning. Part of the future on the new timeline's key, we'd be simple farmers. Birds would sing dee-dee-dee. Light years from home, we were 4.3, and our sunrise in the morning we'd see over the sea. I went to 4 weddings in that first summer alone. When back on dry land, everybody wanted a home. I'll spare you the details, I'll spare you the pairings, but you would have loved to see the suit that I wore, handsome and daring. We had all the great stuff at our new star, traditions we had brought from Earth now so far. This Rigel K wedding is like the good old days I was thinking. There was dancing and singing and fighting and drinking. Our whole family there, singletons, twins, and triplets. Next morning I made a cup of coffee. I hand-pressed and hand-dripped it. I went for a dip in a new Neptunian pond. and I imagined that within 10 years we'd have real pond fronds. I walked out over the hill to where D1 was parked, now a giant planetary city with a singularity marked. It was estimated our greatest chance for survival was if we left space and stage grounded a while. So I went out into the sunset and the antenna strength tested, set my hammock above the dead zone, and laid down and rested. Here's the conclusion of the captain's great-grandkids report. So that is how the moon of New Neptune at Rigel Centaurus became our new home. And although for 2 generations we lived in a dome, I'll say goodnight and pick up my toothbrush and comb. I'm finished for now, my epic great-grandparents' poem. Then there's a message from me, Joe. It says, last part I finished in a hotel lobby on April 27th, 2024, before we're walking over to talk to my Uncle Chris with my brother Bill. And then, next time, here's a preview of Act 5, 10 years later. Okay, 3 light years away from Earth, on Coffee Island, New Neptune, Rigel K, 3 a.m., alarms blaring. What is it? I fell out of my hammock. We have detected a large alien settlement on the other side of this planet. Why didn't we see them on approach? They don't use nucleics and they're burning oil. They weren't here before the time wave. Barbarian trash burners like the anciently Earthers? No, check this out. They are anciently Earthers. I couldn't believe what I saw on the views screen. A fairly large colony established in green. Well, I thought I would puke, and I thought I would choke when I saw they were powering their farm with black smoke. But even more stunning to my dry ancient eyes was seeing their old ancient Earther flags in the skies. I thought I was dreaming a second or two. Then I wondered how maybe the city was new. It looked very old, but it just got here at this time of year. 'Cause the time wave's energy finally got clear out to here. It took it 10 years. I wonder if I got brain damage between the ears, 'cause the time wave knocked me out and brought me to tears. A second, more damaging time wave hit a few minutes later. When the box cutter regained deep telemetry, we saw down on New Neptune tremendous damage. The new loop time wave trash burner bases on the far side of the planet were still there, and now an entire megacity of unknown origin.